Captain Lee Tae-min stood at the observation deck of Council Station Alpha, watching the endless stream of alien ships moving through space. Each vessel carried diplomats, traders, and citizens from hundreds of different worlds. The sight still amazed him after 2 years of service as Earth's military attaché to the Galactic Council. The Council had ruled the galaxy for over 2,000 years. Their laws kept peace between species that might otherwise tear each other apart. The most important of these were the sacred laws of war. These ancient rules protected civilians, especially children, no matter which species they belonged to. Breaking these laws was the worst crime anyone could commit. Lee adjusted his uniform and checked his watch. Ambassador Park So-ra would arrive soon for the morning briefing. She had been Earth's voice in the Council for 5 years now. Where Lee saw potential threats and military concerns, Park saw opportunities for cooperation and growth. They made a good team even when they disagreed. Captain Lee, came a familiar voice behind him. He turned to see Dr. Kim Han-sol approaching. The xenobiologist looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he had been working through the night again. Dr. Kim, Lee replied with a slight bow. You look like you need sleep. Kim shook his head. No time for sleep. I have been monitoring the deep space sensors around New Busan. Something strange is happening out there. New Busan was one of Earth's newest colonies. The mining world sat on the edge of Council space, far from the major trade routes. It was perfect for the cultural exchange program that had been running there for 6 months. Human children learned alongside young aliens from 12 different species. What kind of strange? Lee asked. Ship movements. Large formations of Council vessels gathering in the outer system. They claim to be on routine patrol, but the patterns are wrong. This is not how patrol fleets move. Lee frowned. Ever since humans joined the Council, some of the older species had viewed them with suspicion. Humans adapted too quickly, learned too fast, and asked too many questions. The Council Prime, an ancient being called Velnara, had made it clear that she considered humans dangerous. Have you reported this to the Council? Lee asked. 3 times, Kim replied. They tell me I am being paranoid. They say humans always see threats where none exist, but I know what I am seeing. Before Lee could respond, Ambassador Park So-ra entered the observation lounge. She moved with the grace of someone born to diplomacy. Her dark hair pulled back in a simple style that somehow managed to look both professional and elegant. Gentlemen, she said, joining them at the window. Dr. Kim, I heard you have concerns about New Busan again. Kim's face tightened. Ambassador, with respect, these are not just concerns. I have data showing unusual military movements. If I am right, our colony could be in danger. Park studied his face carefully. What kind of danger? I do not know yet. But the ship formations I am seeing, they are not defensive. They look like attack groups. Lee felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Ambassador, perhaps we should send a message to New Busan, just to check on the exchange program. Park considered this. The program is going wonderfully. Teacher Choi Min-ho sent his weekly report yesterday. The children are learning so much from each other. Human kids are teaching alien children how to play soccer, while the alien children share their music and art. That is exactly why we need to be careful, Kim insisted. The children make New Busan a symbol of human integration into the Council. Some species see this as a threat to their own influence. Park sighed. She had heard similar warnings before. Dr. Kim, I understand your concerns, but we cannot let fear guide our decisions. The cultural exchange program represents everything the Council stands for. It shows that different species can live and learn together in peace. On New Busan, Teacher Choi Min-ho was having the time of his life. The school had been built specifically for the exchange program, with classrooms designed to accommodate children from many different species. Some students breathed different atmospheres, others needed special gravity fields, but somehow they all managed to learn together. Today's lesson focused on art from different worlds. The human children had drawn pictures of Earth's oceans and forests. The Altaran children had created crystal sculptures that sang when touched. The young Bathari had woven living plants into beautiful patterns. 8-year-old twins Subin and Do-hyun Kang were working with a group of alien children to paint a mural on the classroom wall. The mural showed children from all the different species holding hands around a bright sun. Teacher Choi, Subin called out, paint on her hands and a big smile on her face. Look what we made. Choi walked over to admire their work. The alien children had taught the human children how to make paint that shifted colors in the light. The human children had shown their alien friends how to blend different shades together. "It is beautiful," Choi said. "You are all becoming such good friends." He was right. The children had no trouble getting along. They did not care about politics or old grudges between species. They just wanted to play and learn together. Do-hyun tugged on Choi's sleeve. "Teacher, when can we visit their worlds? I want to see the singing crystals that Zil talks about." "Maybe someday," Choi replied. "For now, we learn about their worlds through their stories and art." The program had been such a success that the council was planning to expand it to other colonies. Leaders from across the galaxy praised it as a model for peaceful cooperation, but not everyone was happy about the program's success. In the shadows of space, Council Prime Velnara met with military commanders from several allied species. They gathered in secret far from Earth sensors and spies. "The humans grow too bold," Velnara said, her ancient voice carrying weight that came from ruling for centuries. "They spread across our galaxy like a virus. Now they teach our children to think like them." General Mordek of the Hegemony Fleet nodded agreement. "The exchange program makes our young ones soft. They forget the natural order. Humans are newcomers. They should not have equal status with species that have served the Council for millennia." "What do you suggest?" asked Admiral Kithara of the Coalition Navy. Velnara's eyes glowed with cold light. "We send a message. Show the humans that their rapid expansion has consequences. The mining facility on New Busan could easily be mistaken for a military research station. The sacred laws protect that colony," Mordek pointed out. "There are children there. Laws can be interpreted," Velnara replied. "We will claim we received intelligence about weapons development. By the time the truth comes out, the message will be sent. The humans will know their place." Back on Council Station Alpha, Lee received another report from Dr. Kim. The alien fleet formations had moved closer to New Busan. Whatever was happening, it would happen soon. He found Ambassador Park in her office. "Reviewing trade agreements, Ambassador," he said urgently. "I think we need to evacuate New Busan." Park looked up, surprised. "Based on what evidence?" "Dr. Kim's data shows unusual patrol patterns," Park interrupted. "Captain, we cannot evacuate a colony every time our sensors detect something unusual. The Council would lose all respect for us." Lee wanted to argue, but he knew she was right about one thing. Humans were already seen as paranoid and aggressive. Evacuating a peaceful colony would only make things worse. He could only hope that his fears were wrong. The attack came at dawn on New Busan. Teacher Choi Min-ho was preparing for the morning art class when the first explosions lit up the sky. Through the classroom windows, he could see streaks of energy cutting through the atmosphere. Ship weapons firing from orbit. The children were arriving for the day's lessons. Subin and Do-hyun Kang ran into the classroom, their backpacks bouncing as they hurried to their seats. Behind them came Zil, the young Alteran whose crystal sculptures had amazed everyone yesterday. "Teacher Choi," Subin called out. "What are those lights in the sky?" Before he could answer, the ground shook. Emergency alarms began wailing across the colony. Choi's training kicked in immediately. All teachers on New Busan had been prepared for emergencies, though no one had expected an attack. "Everyone stay calm," he said, moving quickly to the emergency communicator. "We are going to play a special game today. Everyone needs to get under their desks and stay very quiet." The children obeyed without question. They trusted him completely. That trust made what happened next even worse. Choi tried to contact the colony's emergency center, but only static came through the communicator. The orbital strikes had targeted the communication arrays first. He moved to the window and looked up at the sky. 3 large warships hung in space above the colony. Their hulls carried the markings of Council forces. Choi felt his blood turn cold. The Council was attacking them. The ships belonged to 3 different species: Hegemony, Coalition, and Supremacy fleets. This was not some rogue commander acting alone. This was an organized military operation. "Teacher," Do-hyun whispered from under his desk, "I am scared." "Everything will be okay," Choi lied. "Help is coming." But he knew no help was coming. New Busan was too far from Earth's main colonies. By the time rescue ships arrived, whatever was going to happen would be over. The orbital bombardment continued for 20 minutes. When it stopped, landing ships began descending from the warships. Council troops were coming to finish what the bombardment had started. Choi made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He activated his personal communicator and began recording everything. If he did not survive, at least there would be evidence of what happened here. "This is Teacher Choi Min-ho at New Busan Cultural Exchange Center," he whispered into the device. "Council forces are attacking our colony. There are 37 human children here, along with 22 alien children from the exchange program. They are all under 10 years old." The first council soldiers entered the school building 30 minutes after the bombardment ended. They moved through the hallways in full combat armor, weapons ready. Choi heard them kicking down doors and searching each room. When they reached his classroom, Choi stepped forward with his hands raised. "I am the teacher here," he said. "These are children. The sacred laws protect them." The lead soldier, a hegemony officer, looked at the cowering children under their desks. For a moment, his weapon lowered. Even hardened soldiers knew the sacred laws. But then his communicator crackled with new orders. Choi could not understand the alien language, but he saw the officer's stance change. The weapon came back up. "Intelligence reports indicate this facility was used for weapons research," the officer said in broken human language. "All subjects must be eliminated to prevent security breach. This is a school." Choi shouted. "Look around you. These are children's drawings on the walls, art supplies on the tables. There are no weapons here." The officer hesitated again. He was looking at the mural the children had painted yesterday, the one showing kids from different species holding hands around a bright sun. Even he could see this was not a military facility, but orders were orders. The council had made its decision. Captain Lee Taemin received the first reports 3 hours after the attack began. He was in his quarters on Council Station Alpha when his emergency communicator activated. "Captain," came Dr. Kim's voice, tight with horror. "New Busan is under attack. Council forces." Lee dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but he did not notice. "That is impossible," he said. "The Council would never attack a civilian colony." "I am watching it happen," Kim replied. 3 Council fleets. They are jamming all communications, but I managed to get a few sensor readings through. The school? Captain, they hit the school. Lee felt something break inside his chest. The children? I do not know. The attack is still ongoing. Lee ran from his quarters toward Ambassador Park's office. He found her in an emergency meeting with 3 council representatives. They were explaining that there had been a regrettable intelligence error on New Busan. The facility was misidentified as a weapons research station, Council Representative Tolmar was saying. "Our forces acted on information that proved to be incorrect. The Council deeply regrets this unfortunate mistake." "Mistake?" Park's voice was deadly quiet. "You are telling me you attacked a school by mistake?" "The intelligence indicated active weapons development," another representative added. "In such cases, immediate action is required to prevent..." "Prevent what?" Lee interrupted, bursting into the room. "Prevent children from learning to paint?" The council representatives looked uncomfortable. "Captain Lee, we understand your emotional response, but you must understand that in matters of galactic security..." "How many?" Lee asked. "Excuse me? How many children did you kill?" The representatives exchanged glances. Finally, Tulmar spoke. "Preliminary reports indicate 59 casualties. The exact breakdown by species is still being determined. 59 children. Dead because the council had decided to send humanity a message." Park stood slowly from her chair. Lee had worked with her for 2 years, but he had never seen her look like this. Her face was completely calm, but her eyes held something that made the council representative step backward. "Ambassador Park," Tolmar began, "the council is prepared to offer standard war reparations." "Get out," Park said quietly. "I beg your pardon?" "Get out of my office now, before I do something that will make this situation much worse." The representatives left quickly. When they were gone, Park sank back into her chair. For the first time since Lee had known her, she looked fragile. "Sora," he said gently, using her first name. "I am sorry." "Eugene was there," she whispered. Lee's blood went cold. Eugene was Park's 8-year-old niece. Her brother had enrolled her in the exchange program because Park had spoken so highly of it. "Is she?" Park nodded, tears finally coming. Choi Min-ho sent a final message before they cut the communications. She was in his classroom when they came. Lee knelt beside her chair. "What do you need me to do?" Park wiped her eyes and looked at him. When she spoke again, her voice was steady, but Lee could hear the steel underneath. Contact Admiral Shin. Tell him to begin Protocol Ragnarok preparations. Quietly. Lee felt his heart skip. Protocol Ragnarok was Earth's most classified military contingency plan. It was designed for only one scenario: total war against the Galactic Council. Ambassador, are you sure? Once we start down that path, they killed children, Taemin. They broke the sacred laws and killed children to send us a message. The only message they are going to receive now is why humans are the most dangerous species in this galaxy when you threaten our young. Park stood and walked to her window, looking out at the council ships moving through space. For 50 years we have played by their rules. We have been the junior partners, the ones who compromise and adapt. We have shown restraint because we believed in their system of laws and justice. She turned back to Lee, and he saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before, something that made him understand why humans had conquered their entire homeworld before they ever reached for the stars. But they just proved that their laws mean nothing when it suits their purposes. So now we will show them what humans do when we stop playing by anyone's rules but our own. Lee stood and saluted. I will contact the Admiral immediately. As he turned to leave, Park called his name. Taemin? Yes, Ambassador? Tell Admiral Shin that the children's names were Subin Kang, Do-hyun Kang, Yoojin Choi, and 34 others. I want him to remember that every single one of them had a name, a family, and a future that the Council took away. Lee nodded and left to make the call that would change the galaxy forever. On New Busan, the Council forces finished their security sweep and prepared to depart. They left behind a burned school, a shattered colony, and 59 small graves that would soon become the foundation for humanity's terrible vengeance. The sacred laws lay broken in the ashes alongside the children, who should have been protected by them, and in the depths of space, humanity began to wake up. Admiral Shin Dong-wook received Captain Lee's message at 0300 hours, Earth Standard Time. He was in his private study at Luna Naval Command, reviewing fleet deployment reports when his secure communicator activated. Admiral, this is Captain Lee. Ambassador Park requests immediate activation of Protocol Ragnarok. Authorization code Broken Sacred Laws. Shin set down his coffee with steady hands, but inside his chest his heart was racing. Protocol Ragnarok was not just a military plan. It was humanity's acknowledgement that someday they might need to fight the entire galaxy alone. Confirmed, Captain. Is this in response to the New Busan incident? Yes, sir. 59 children are dead. The Council claims it was an intelligence error, but we have evidence it was deliberate. Shin closed his eyes for a moment. He had grandchildren. The thought of them being targeted by alien forces filled him with a cold rage that surprised him with its intensity. Understood. Protocol Ragnarok is now active. Tell the Ambassador she will have what she needs. After ending the communication, Shin activated his emergency command system. Within minutes, he was connected to every human military commander in the galaxy. The activation of Protocol Ragnarok required unanimous agreement from all senior officers. Gentlemen and ladies, he said to the faces appearing on his screens, the Galactic Council has attacked and killed 59 human children on New Busan. They claim it was an intelligence error. Our analysis suggests it was a deliberate message. General Yoon Ji-hai of Special Operations was the first to respond. Admiral, are you requesting authorization for total war? I am requesting authorization to prepare for total war. The Council has broken the sacred laws that we have respected for 50 years. We now have evidence that they consider those laws negotiable when it suits their political purposes. Colonel Oh Jae-sung spoke from his base on Mars. What about the other species? Many of them had nothing to do with this attack. The attack was carried out by 3 different Council fleets, Shin replied. Hegemony, coalition, and supremacy forces. This was not the action of a single species. This was approved at the highest levels of Council leadership. Commander Park Hyejin raised her hand. Admiral, once we start this, there will be no going back. The galaxy will never trust us again. Shin nodded. Commander, they just murdered our children. Do we care if they trust us? The vote was unanimous. Protocol Ragnarok was fully authorized. Dr. Lim Hai-wan was working late in her research laboratory on Titan when the emergency orders arrived. She was one of Earth's leading experts in xenobiology and alien physiology. For years, she had used her knowledge to develop medical treatments that could help all species in the galaxy. Now, she was being asked to use that same knowledge for a very different purpose. The orders were simple: develop weapons specifically designed to counter each major Council species' biology. The weapons that had been theoretically banned by treaties that humanity had never signed. Hei-Wan's hands shook as she read the classified files. Her son Jiwoo had been at the new Busan exchange program. He was supposed to come home next month with stories about his alien friends and the beautiful art they had created together. Instead, she had received a message from Teacher Choi confirming that Jiwoo was among the dead. Her son had been 8 years old. He loved space stories and wanted to be an explorer when he grew up. He had been excited about learning alien languages and making friends with children from other worlds. Now he was dead because the Council had decided that human children were acceptable casualties in their political games. Hei-Wan wiped her tears and began working. If the Council wanted to play by new rules, she would give them new rules. The hegemony species had enhanced bone density but weak cardiovascular systems. A specific sonic frequency could cause their hearts to stop. The coalition species relied on a unique brain chemistry that could be disrupted by certain chemical compounds. The supremacy species had redundant organs but a single point of failure in their nervous systems. For 50 years, human scientists had studied these weaknesses for medical purposes. Now they would be weapons. Captain Lee Taemin was not sleeping. He spent his nights mapping Council military installations and recording guard rotations. His days were filled with diplomatic meetings where he smiled and nodded while Council representatives offered their sincere regrets about New Busan. The Council's official story was that they had received intelligence about weapons development on the mining colony. They claimed their forces had acted in good faith to prevent a security threat. The deaths of the children were described as regrettable collateral damage and a necessary security operation. Lee knew better. He had managed to recover some of Teacher Choi's recordings from New Busan. The teacher had hidden his communicator and kept recording until the very end. The recordings proved that the Council forces knew they were attacking a school. They had seen the children and been given direct orders to eliminate them anyway. But publicly, humanity accepted the Council's explanation. Ambassador Park made statements about the need for better communication and intelligence sharing. She spoke about preventing future tragedies through improved cooperation. In private, she met with Lee every night to review target lists. The Council thinks we accepted their explanation because we are weak, she said during one of their planning sessions. They think we are too civilized to seek revenge for our children. What about the other species? Lee asked. Many of them had children killed at New Busan too. The Alterans lost 3 young ones. The Bathari lost 5. Park's expression was grim. I have spoken with their ambassadors. They are angry, but they accept the Council's explanation. They say that sometimes children die in military operations. They say it is the cost of maintaining galactic security. Lee felt sick. They are willing to accept the murder of their own children? They have been in the Council for centuries. They have learned to think like the Council thinks. Children are acceptable losses if the political goals are important enough. And us? Park smiled, and Lee saw something in that smile that would have terrified the Council if they had seen it. We are humans. We do not think like them. When someone kills our children, we do not accept explanations. We do not move on. We do not forgive. Like, what do? We make sure they understand the difference. On Earth, the public was demanding action. News of the New Busan attack had spread, despite the government's attempts to control the information. Protests filled the streets of every major city. The families of the dead children appeared on news programs, showing pictures of their young ones and demanding justice. The government's public response was measured and diplomatic. But privately, every human world was increasing military production. Shipyards that had been building civilian vessels were retooled for warships. Manufacturing facilities began producing weapons and equipment at wartime levels. The Council's intelligence services noticed the increased activity, but they interpreted it as defensive preparations. They thought humanity was afraid and building up defenses to prevent future attacks. They were wrong. Colonel O.J. Sung was leading covert teams across the galaxy. His special forces operators had spent years building relationships with various alien species. Many of those relationships had been for peaceful purposes, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, and trade development. Now, those relationships became intelligence networks, O's teams mapped Council military bases, identified key personnel, and cataloged defensive systems. They moved like ghosts through Council space, gathering information that would be crucial when the time came to strike. The Council never suspected that the friendly human scientists and cultural attachés they had worked with for years were actually military intelligence operatives. Humanity's reputation for openness and cooperation had made them invisible. Admiral Shin coordinated the growing preparations from Luna Naval Command. Every human military unit in the galaxy was being quietly repositioned. Supply lines were established. Target lists were distributed. Contingency plans were refined. The operation had to be perfect. Humanity would only get one chance to strike. If they failed, the Council would mobilize its full military might against Earth and every human colony. But if they succeeded, the galaxy would learn that there were some lines that should never be crossed. 3 months after New Busan, Dr. Lim Hae-won completed her weapons research. The devices were small, efficient, and devastating. Each one was designed to target specific alien physiology while leaving humans completely unharmed. She sealed the prototypes in secure containers and sent them to Admiral Shin with a note. For Jiwoo and all the others, let them know the price of murdering our children. Ambassador Park continued her diplomatic duties, attending council meetings and participating in discussions about galactic security. She smiled at the same species leaders who had ordered the attack on New Busan. She shook hands with the military commanders who had pulled the triggers. And every night, she updated the target lists. The galaxy continued its normal routine, unaware that humanity was preparing for a war unlike anything the Council had ever faced. The Council leaders congratulated themselves on successfully delivering their message to the upstart humans. They had no idea that humanity's message was still being written, and when it was delivered, the galaxy would never be the same. Ambassador Park Sora walked into the Galactic Council chamber for the last time as Earth's representative. She carried with her a small datapad containing evidence that would change everything. Around her, delegates from hundreds of species took their seats, preparing for another routine session. Council Prime Velnara sat on her ancient throne, confident in her power. 6 months had passed since New Busan, and the humans had seemed to accept the Council's explanation. They had even increased their trade relationships with several species. Velnara believed her message had been received and understood. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The Council recognizes Ambassador Park of the Human Federation, Velnara announced. Park stood and activated her datapad. Immediately, holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. The images showed the inside of a classroom on New Busan. Children were hiding under desks while explosions shook the building outside. 6 months ago, Park began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, the Galactic Council broke the sacred laws that have protected civilians for over 2,000 years. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. This was not the diplomatic language they expected from the usually careful human ambassador. The holographic display shifted to show Council soldiers entering the classroom. The delegates could see Teacher Choi stepping forward with his hands raised. They could hear him explaining that the children were protected by the sacred laws. Then they watched as the Council soldiers opened fire. This was not an intelligence error. Park continued as the horrific images played. This was a deliberate decision made at the highest levels of Council leadership. The soldiers knew they were killing children. They had orders to eliminate all witnesses to send humanity a message. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Many delegates had believed the official story about an intelligence mistake. Now they were seeing proof that their own leaders had authorized the murder of children. Velnara rose from her throne. Ambassador Park, these recordings could be fabricated. Could they? Park interrupted. She activated another file on her datapad. This is a recording of the planning session where you authorized the attack. We have been monitoring your private communications for months. The new hologram showed Velnara meeting with General Mordek and Admiral Kethara. The delegates heard them discussing how to send a message to humanity by attacking the school. They heard Velnara dismiss concerns about the sacred laws by saying they could be interpreted. The chamber fell silent. The evidence was overwhelming. Park looked around at the shocked faces of the delegates. Many of them had children of their own. Many had sent their young ones to cultural exchange programs because they believed in the sacred laws. The council leadership decided that human children were acceptable casualties in their political games. Park said, "They believed we would accept their explanations and move on. They thought we were too civilized to seek justice for our murdered young." She paused and looked directly at Velnara. They were wrong. Park touched her datapad one final time. As of this moment, the Human Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. We no longer recognize Council authority over human space or human citizens. Since the Council has abandoned the sacred laws, we no longer feel bound by any Council treaties or agreements. The delegates began shouting questions and protests, but Park was not finished. The Council wanted to send humanity a message. Consider this our reply. At that exact moment, across the galaxy, humanity struck. Admiral Shin's fleet had been positioned in deep space for weeks, waiting for Park's signal. The moment she transmitted the withdrawal announcement, 17 different human task forces launched simultaneous attacks on Council military installations. The Council had never faced anything like human military coordination. Their own forces were spread across hundreds of systems, each species operating independently with different tactics and technologies. The humans moved like a single organism with one purpose. Colonel O.J. Sung led the assault on Council Military Command Station Omega. His Special Forces teams had been infiltrating the station for months, mapping defenses and identifying key systems. When the attack began, they struck from inside while Admiral Shin's ships attacked from space. The station's shields lasted 17 minutes. The defense fleet lasted 32 minutes. The station itself was captured intact in less than 2 hours. Commander Park Hyojin's task force hit the Council's central communications hub at System 7. The facility coordinated military communications across 3 sectors of Council space. The humans captured it in 45 minutes and immediately began broadcasting their own messages to Council fleets. Dr. Lim Hae-wan's weapons proved devastatingly effective. The sonic disruptors paralyzed hegemony forces by stopping their hearts. The chemical compound sent coalition forces into fatal convulsions. The neural scramblers left supremacy forces brain dead within seconds. The weapons had been specifically designed to target alien physiology while leaving humans completely unharmed. In mixed battles, human forces could deploy the weapons freely without risking their own soldiers. But the most devastating aspect of humanity's assault was not their technology. It was their unity of purpose. The Council species had been fighting wars for millennia, but they fought for territory, resources, or political advantage. They had rules about acceptable losses and strategic retreats. They understood when to negotiate and when to surrender. Humans were fighting for their murdered children. They did not retreat. They did not negotiate. They did not accept surrender. Captain Lee Taemin led a boarding assault on Council Prime Station, the massive facility that housed the Council's government. His Marines moved through the station like an unstoppable force, advancing through defensive positions that should have held for days. When Council guards tried to surrender, the humans ignored them and kept advancing. When Council leaders tried to negotiate, the humans cut their communications and kept attacking. When alien forces fell back to defensive positions, the humans followed and destroyed them completely. The Council had expected a normal war with normal rules. They found themselves fighting an enemy that viewed their conflict as total and absolute. General Yoonji Hae coordinated the siege of Council Fleet Base Alpha, the largest military shipyard in Council space. The base was protected by 3 defensive rings and a fleet of over 200 warships. The humans punched through all 3 defensive rings in 6 hours. The defending fleet was destroyed or scattered within 12 hours. The base itself fell after 18 hours of continuous assault. As news of the attack spread, panic began to grip Council space. Military commanders who had never lost a battle found their forces being systematically destroyed by human forces that seemed to appear everywhere at once. The humans had spent 50 years learning about Council military capabilities, studying their tactics, and mapping their installations. Now they used that knowledge to devastating effect. More importantly, the humans had spent 50 years being underestimated. The Council had seen them as junior partners, newcomers who would eventually learn to think and act. Like proper Council members, the Council had never realized they were dealing with apex predators who had been holding themselves back. Velnara tried to coordinate a defense from her command. sent her deep within Council Prime Station. She sent desperate messages to military commanders across the galaxy, demanding that they rally their forces and counterattack. But her communications were being intercepted by humans who had infiltrated Council systems months earlier. Her orders were being changed, her intelligence was being corrupted, and her commanders were receiving false information that sent them into traps. How is this possible? She demanded of her surviving advisors. Humans are a single species. We have the resources of hundreds of worlds. The humans fight as one, replied her military advisor, his voice shaking. Our forces fight as separate species with separate goals. They coordinate. We compete. Velnara realized with growing horror that she had made a fundamental error. She had thought of humans as just another council species, limited by the same political divisions and competing interests that weakened other civilizations. Instead, she had awakened something that the galaxy had not seen for thousands of years, a species that could unite completely in pursuit of a single goal. As Council Prime Station shook under human weapons fire, Velnara understood that her attempt to send humanity a message had succeeded beyond her worst nightmares. The message had been received, and humanity's response was going to destroy everything the Council had built. In the Council chamber, the remaining delegates watched in horror as reports came in from across the galaxy. Human forces were advancing on every front. Council military installations were falling faster than anyone had thought possible. Some delegates called for immediate surrender. Others demanded a fight to the death. A few tried to establish communications with their home worlds to arrange separate peace negotiations. None of it mattered. The humans were not interested in surrender or negotiation. They had a simple goal: the complete destruction of every military force that had participated in the New Busan attack, and the elimination of every government that had authorized it. They would not stop until that goal was achieved. The galaxy was learning. 1 year after the New Busan attack, Admiral Shin Dong-wook stood in what had once been the Galactic Council chamber. The massive space had been converted into a memorial hall, with holographic displays showing the faces of every child killed in the attack. The war was over. It had lasted 8 months. 12 species had surrendered unconditionally after their military forces were completely destroyed. The hegemony, coalition, and supremacy governments had been dissolved entirely. 3 other species had been rendered extinct when they chose to fight to the death rather than surrender. The remaining council species had fled to the outer rim of the galaxy, establishing small colonies far from human space. They sent occasional messages requesting permission to return, but those messages went unanswered. There was no Galactic Council anymore. There was only the human hegemony and the species that had chosen to live under human protection. Shin walked slowly past the memorial displays, reading the names. Subin Kang, 8 years old, wanted to be an artist. Doohyun Kang, 8 years old, loved stories about space exploration. Eugene Choi, 8 years old, had been learning 3 alien languages, 59 names in total. Children who had died because the council thought human young were acceptable casualties in political games. Admiral, came a voice behind him. Shin turned to see Captain Lee Taemin approaching. Lee now wore the uniform of the Peaceful Enforcement Corps, the military organization tasked with maintaining order in human space. His job was to make sure no one ever again threatened human children. Captain, Shin replied, how are the negotiations proceeding? The Valdari delegation has agreed to our terms, Lee reported. They will relocate their colonies to Sector 47 and accept human oversight of their military forces. In exchange, we guarantee their protection and trade rights. Shin nodded. This was how the new galaxy worked. Species that wanted human protection followed human rules. Species that wanted independence stayed in the outer rim and left human space alone. It was not the peaceful cooperation that Ambassador Park had once dreamed of, but it was stable. And most importantly, it was safe for human children. What about the memorial on New Busan? Shin asked. Construction is complete, Lee replied. Ambassador Park will dedicate it next week. The New Busan Memorial was the largest monument humanity had ever built. It stood where the school had once been, a crystalline structure that reached toward the sky. Inside, visitors could see recordings of the children who had died there, along with children from 12 other species who had been killed in the same attack. The monument's inscription was written in every known galactic language. Here lie innocents. Their sacrifice taught the galaxy that some lines must never be crossed. Let their memory keep the peace we built from the ashes of those who forgot. But there was another message carved into the base of the monument, written only in human languages. They were our children. We were their guardians. We failed them once. Never again. Ambassador Park Sora, now Director of Human Colonial Affairs, had insisted on that second inscription. She wanted humanity to remember not just what others had done, but what they had failed to prevent. She had never forgiven herself for not evacuating New Busan when Dr. Kim warned them about the alien ship movements. The guilt drove her to work 18-hour days ensuring that human colonies had the best possible defenses and intelligence networks. Dr. Lim Hae-won had destroyed all her research on biological weapons after the war ended. She had returned to medical research, developing treatments that could help the surviving council species rebuild their populations. Her son Ji-woo would never come home, but she could try to prevent other families from suffering the same loss. She often worked late into the night, and sometimes her research assistants would find her crying over her instruments. The war had given her justice for her son's death, but it had not given her peace. Colonel O.J. Sung led the Peaceful Enforcement Corps operations throughout human space. His special forces teams had become the galaxy's most effective peacekeeping force, not because they were the most heavily armed, but because everyone knew what happened to those who threatened human civilians. The few remaining pirates and raiders in human space had learned to avoid any target that might contain human children. The punishment for harming a human child was not imprisonment or fines. It was the complete elimination of the perpetrator's species. This was not cruelty. It was simple mathematics. The cost of threatening human children had been made clear to the entire galaxy. Most species chose to pay the much lower cost of following human laws. Teacher Choi Min-ho had survived the New Busan attack, though he bore scars that would never heal. He now ran a new cultural exchange program on Earth itself, where human and alien children learned together under the protection of orbital defense platforms and ground-based security forces. The new program was smaller than the old one. Many alien species were reluctant to send their children to human space even under human protection. They remembered what humans had done to the species that threatened their young. But some species did participate. The Alterans, who had lost 3 children at New Busan, sent a delegation of young artists to study human painting techniques. The Bathari, who had lost 5 children, sent musicians to learn human songs. These alien children were treated with extraordinary care. They were guarded by the same soldiers who had once destroyed council fleets. They were protected by weapons systems designed to eliminate entire invasion forces. The message was clear. If you entrusted your children to human care, they would be safer than anywhere else in the galaxy. But if you threatened human children, you would face the full wrath of humanity's military might. Council Prime Velnara had died during the siege of Council Prime Station. She had refused to surrender even when her defenses collapsed around her. Captain Lee's Marines found her body in her command center, killed when human bombardment brought down the walls. Her final message, recovered from her personal communicator, had been a warning to the remaining Council species. Do not underestimate them again. They are not like us. When they fight as one. When they are wronged, they do not forgive. When their children are threatened, they become something that the galaxy has never seen before. It was the most accurate intelligence report she had ever filed. General Mordek and Admiral Cathara, the military commanders who had planned the New Busan attack, had both been captured alive. They were held in high-security facilities on Earth, not as prisoners of war, but as reminders of what happened to those who murdered human children. They would live for the rest of their natural lives in small cells, with nothing to do but think about the 59 children they had killed and the civilizations they had destroyed with that decision. Occasionally, human children on school trips would visit the facilities to see the aliens who had tried to hurt them. The children would ask questions about why someone would want to kill kids from other species. The guards would explain that some people made very bad choices and had to live with the consequences. The children usually left feeling sorry for the prisoners. Human empathy was one of the species' greatest strengths, even toward those who had wronged them terribly. But the children also left understanding that there were adults who would do anything necessary to keep them safe. 10 years after New Busan, The galaxy had settled into its new reality. Hundreds of species lived peacefully under human protection. Trade flourished. Scientific cooperation advanced. Art and culture spread between worlds. Children from dozens of species played together in parks and schools throughout human space, guarded by soldiers who had once been the galaxy's most feared warriors. The peace was not perfect. Some species chafed under human authority. Others plotted rebellion from the outer rim. A few tried to develop weapons that could challenge human military supremacy. All of these efforts failed. Humanity had learned from the Council's mistakes. They did not wait for threats to develop. They did not hope that problems would resolve themselves. They acted quickly and decisively to eliminate any danger to their people. The galaxy was peaceful because everyone understood the consequences of breaking that peace. Ambassador Park, now elderly and gray-haired, still visited the New Busan Memorial every year on the anniversary of the attack. She would stand before the crystalline monument and read the names of the children who had died there: Subin Kang, Du-hyun Kang, Yu-jin, Choi. 56 other names that represented 56 futures stolen by political ambition and species. Prejudice. "I am sorry we could not save you," she would whisper to the memorial. "But we made sure no one else will suffer as you did. We made sure the galaxy learned the lesson of your sacrifice." And across human space, in schools and parks and playgrounds, millions of children played safely under the protection of the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever known. They played without fear because their guardians had learned the price of failure. They laughed and learned and grew because adults who loved them had made the galaxy understand one simple truth: human children were not acceptable casualties in anyone's political games. The galaxy had learned that lesson, written in fire and written in blood, and it would never forget.